Welcome to another video in my series, Brief Babbles. These super short videos are aimed at touching on smaller and more creative ideas or vehicles from history. Whether they are so obscure that there is not much known about them or they did not make much of an impact in the grand scheme of things, every wacky and out there design deserves at least a little bit of recognition. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a like if you enjoy, and leave a comment about ideas for future videos. Getting into today's topic, the Brits during the interwar period were doing what everyone else in the world was doing, making strange new designs for unproven tank combat ideas. One of these strange and newer ideas came in the form of a small and boxy floating tank known as the Vickers Floating Light Tank. The Vickers Light Amphibious Tanks A4E11 and A4E12 were two prototypes as designated by the War Office, destined to test the concept of a floating light tank. The main idea was to use them for marshy terrains, crossing rivers and any watery obstacle, or even take part in a sea landing. Thus, an in-house experimental tank was designed and developed from 1931 until late 1932. Basically, more of a light tank rather than a tankette, based not only on its weight but also the fact that it had a turret. The initial two received the designation A4E11 and A4E12, but they were also known as the L1E1 and L1E2. They were demonstrated to the British Army. Overall, this was indeed a slightly heavier tank than the previous Carden-Lloyd tankettes, which barely registered 1.5 tons. As modified, the vehicle was 2.2 tons, with a length of 13 feet 4 inches, a width of 6 feet 9 inches, and a height of 6 feet 2 inches. Its crew only comprised of a driver, seated at the front, followed by the machine gunner/commander behind the turret. The front plate, forming almost a beak, was sloped for bullet deflection from the front, but the most characteristic part of the design was its pair of flotation caissons, on each side of the central hull above the drivetrain. They acted as mudguards and for flotation, both being angled forward and aft, which gave basic floating efficiency when swimming. These were metal but filled with balsa wood. The other major innovation was its single propeller shaft, protected in a swiveling shroud. Steering was achieved by a single rudder behind it, and it could be controlled by the driver through the same levers used to drive the tracks. For mobility on land and water, the power source was a single Meadows petrol 6-cylinder 90 horsepower engine installed at the front, which procured a top speed of 27 miles per hour on road and 3.72 miles per hour in water. It used Horstmann suspensions just like other Vickers light tanks at the time. The limitations of this system were well known. When running at max speed on even ground and steering left or right really hard, it was easy to throw off the tracks. Still, 27 miles per hour was not a lot for a scout tank, and thus the risk was reduced. As for armament, it was limited with the one-man turret at the rear, a simple drum type with a single-piece hatch on top, opening forward to protect the commander. Inside was a liquid-cooled 303 standard Vickers machine gun. It was in part housed in a tailored chassis, managed in an overhanging box forward. There was no traverse, only elevation with a simple circular bearing acting as the traverse. Though not adopted by the British Army, Vickers sold this tank throughout the world. Main buyers were China, the Dutch East Indies, Thailand, and the USSR. The most famous case was of course the Soviet Union. After copying the A1E1 Independent for their T-28 and T-35 medium and heavy multi-turret tanks, copied and mass-produced the Vickers Type E as the T-26, and eventually replicated it relatively faithfully as the T-37A amphibious tank, of which 1,200 exited Soviet factories until 1941. The Soviet Union was in fact the only country to embrace fully this type, and later modernized the design. All in all, the rejection by the Army was in large part due to the sacrifices made in armor to keep the weight low and ensure floatability by using these small caissons. They achieved buoyancy, but at such a price that they were almost soft-skinned vehicles. Being both small, with a limited range, and weakly armed, they lost their appeal as scouts, especially compared with armored cars. In the UK alone, the prospect of using these in operation never was seriously examined for possible tactical operations, notably with the kind of doctrine used at the time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy, think about checking out some of my other content above. Or don't, if you're lame. Either way, I hope to see you in the next one.